Picture a king who once stood as the shining star of Europe, a Renaissance prince whose charm, strength, and intellect dazzled courts and captivated nations. Now envision that same monarch, in the bitter winter of 1547, confined to a darkened chamber in Whitehall Palace, his body a bloated, decaying wreck, his mind teetering on the edge of madness, haunted by the ghosts of his ruthless past. This is the story of Henry VIII, England's most notorious king, whose final days were a chilling spectacle of blood, power, and mortality. Once a golden boy who reshaped a nation, he became a tyrant whose choices broke his body and soul, leaving a legacy that echoes through history. Join us as we unravel this haunting tale of ambition, decay, and redemption. And if it grips you as much as it does me, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to dive deeper into the shadows of the past, because these stories teach us not just to remember history, but to learn from it and shape a bolder future. In 1509, at just 17, Henry VIII ascended the English throne, a 6-foot-tall vision of vitality with auburn hair, piercing blue eyes, and a charisma that left ambassadors in awe. A skilled juicer, musician, and scholar fluent in Latin, French, and Italian, he was the embodiment of the Renaissance ideal. His court was a vibrant hub of lavish feasts, grand tournaments, and intellectual debates, where poets and scholars mingled with knights and nobles. Foreign dignitaries wrote glowing reports of his athletic prowess, describing how he outshone his peers in jousting and hunting, his muscular frame cutting an imposing figure. Henry's early reign was a golden age, a time when England basked in the promise of a king who seemed destined for greatness. He married Catherine of Aragon, his brother's widow, in a union that symbolized diplomatic strength, and his court became a beacon of culture, with music, art, and learning flourishing under his patronage. Yet beneath the splendor lay the seeds of his twin obsessions, blood and power. His desperate need for a male heir to secure the Tudor dynasty and his hunger for absolute control would drive him to break with the Catholic Church, execute 2 queens, and send thousands to their deaths, transforming him from a beloved prince into a feared tyrant. By January 1547, Henry was a shadow of his former self, his body a battlefield of afflictions. At nearly 400 pounds, he relied on mechanical contraptions to move from bed to chair, his once muscular legs, now riddled with festering ulcers that emitted a stench so foul it forced courtiers to hold perfumed handkerchiefs to their faces. Modern historians speculate he suffered from type 2 diabetes, which slowed wound healing and fueled his obesity, gout, causing excruciating joint pain, and possibly osteomyelitis, a bone infection that explained the relentless agony in his legs. His once handsome face, celebrated in portraits by Hans Holbein, was now a sickly yellow mask with sunken eyes, his liver failing, his skin sallow from a body pushed beyond its limits. Royal physicians, constrained by 16th-century medicine, resorted to desperate measures, poultices of boiled onions, powdered human skull, and other bizarre remedies that often intensified his suffering. Opium, applied liberally to dull the pain, plunged him into a fog of confusion, blurring the line between reality and hallucination. If you're captivated by this tale of a king's fall from glory, like and share the story, and subscribe to keep exploring the human side of history. Your support keeps these stories alive, inspiring us to uncover the past together. Henry's mental decline was as harrowing as his physical decay. Once a commanding figure whose presence filled rooms, his legendary temper now erupted into uncontrollable rages, terrifying attendants and courtiers alike. He would scream accusations of treason, only to lapse into periods of confused lethargy, his mind adrift in a haze of pain and paranoia. Court records describe him muttering about the ghosts of his victims, Thomas More, whose execution he ordered for refusing to accept him as head of the Church of England, Anne Boleyn, his second wife, beheaded on charges of adultery, and Thomas Cromwell, his loyal minister turned scapegoat. These visions, possibly fueled by opium or the onset of dementia, reflected a mind tormented by guilt and fear of divine judgment. In moments of clarity, Henry obsessed over his will, desperate to secure his dynasty through his frail 9-year-old son, Edward VI, born to his third wife, Jane Seymour. His paranoia was well-founded. The court was a nest of vipers, with factions plotting to control the boy king's regency. Protestant reformers, led by Edward Seymour, Earl of Hertford, and Thomas Cranmer, Archbishop of Canterbury, pushed for a Protestant England, while Catholic conservatives, led by Thomas Howard, Duke of Norfolk, clung to the old faith, hoping to restore Catholic dominance. Even in his weakened state, Henry's ruthlessness endured as he signed execution orders with trembling hands, including one for Norfolk, accused of treason in a final act of vengeance. Fate intervened, sparing Norfolk when Henry died before the order could be carried out. To maintain stability, royal proclamations falsely claimed Henry was hale and hearty, a desperate lie to prevent rebellion or foreign invasion. Cranmer tightly controlled access to the sick room, where the air was thick with the sickly sweet smell of decay, barely masked by burning incense. Even Queen Catherine Parr, Henry's sixth and surviving wife, was kept at a distance during his final hours, a testament to the political calculations at play. If this drama of power, betrayal, and decay grips you, hit that like button, share it with others, and subscribe. Let's keep unraveling history's darkest chapters together. The court was a powder keg, with the Privy Council fracturing into rival factions. Seymour and Cranmer's Protestant alliance sought to cement reforms initiated by Henry's break with Rome, while Norfolk's Catholics maneuvered to preserve traditional doctrines. The sick room itself became a macabre stage, Henry's massive bed draped in dark fabrics, the stench of his ulcerous legs, exposing bone through necrotizing tissue, forcing attendants to fling open windows despite the biting winter chill. Servants worked in shifts to manage the king's dire condition, their perfumed handkerchiefs a grim necessity as the smell grew unbearable. Henry's religious convictions, always central to his reign, became a battleground in his final days. Having declared himself head of the Church of England, he wavered between Catholic rituals and Protestant doctrines, demanding last rites one day and reaffirming reforms the next. His chaplain recorded moments when Henry awoke in terror, claiming to see the faces of his victims at his bedside, their silent judgment amplifying his fear of divine retribution. On January 27, 1547, violent seizures racked his 400-pound frame, a stroke paralyzing his right side and slurring his speech. Desperate physicians applied hot irons to his skin and forced bitter concoctions down his throat, but their efforts were futile. In his final hours, Henry's dread of judgment consumed him. Summoned to his bedside, Cranmer asked him to squeeze his hand if he placed his faith in Christ. With a feeble grip, Henry complied, slipping into a coma and dying on January 28, 1547, likely from heart failure, sepsis from infected wounds, and complications from diabetes. The Privy Council suppressed the news for 3 days, a strategic delay that allowed Seymour to seize power as Lord Protector and Duke of Somerset. While Henry's body, decomposing rapidly due to advanced infections, posed gruesome challenges, embalmers struggled to prepare it, removing diseased organs and filling cavities with herbs and preservatives. The massive lead-lined coffin, nearly twice the width of a standard noble's, leaked gases during the lying-in state at Whitehall, a grotesque reminder of his physical decay. If you're riveted by this tale of a king's end, like, share, and subscribe. Your support fuels our passion for bringing history to life. On February 16, 1547, the funeral procession to Windsor Castle saw black-draped horses pull Henry's enormous coffin through streets lined with mourners, their grief tinged with nostalgia for the king who had once embodied England's glory. Effigies depicted him in his prime, a stark contrast to the bloated corpse laid to rest beside Jane Seymour at St. George's Chapel, a final nod to his obsession with a male heir. His death sent shockwaves through England and beyond. The public, steeped in superstition, reported prophetic dreams and ominous signs, fearing instability under a child king. Parish records from 1547 capture a nation anxious about its future, with sermons drawing parallels between Henry's afflicted body and moral decay, urging reform as divine will. Internationally, France's ambassador mourned a dear brother, while Emperor Charles V saw strategic opportunities in England's vulnerability. Even Pope Paul III, who had excommunicated Henry, offered a mass for his soul, a political maneuver to reassert Catholic influence as Protestantism gained ground. Henry's surviving family navigated treacherous waters. Catherine Parr, with remarkable speed, married Thomas Seymour, her true love, transitioning from royal widow to a new chapter. Edward VI, just 9, was a puppet in the hands of his uncle Seymour, his emotional detachment evident in his curt journal entry. My father, whose sole God-pardon died. Princesses Mary and Elizabeth faced their own perils. Mary, a devout Catholic, grew alienated by the Protestant agenda, foreshadowing her turbulent reign. Elizabeth, only 13, treaded cautiously, her legitimacy questioned due to Anne Boleyn's execution. Seymour's rise as Lord Protector marked a shift toward Protestantism, with the 1549 Book of Common Prayer moving England away from Latin rituals to a unified Protestant identity. This reform, born from Henry's contradictory legacy, reshaped religious practice, though tensions between Catholic and Protestant factions persisted. The court's maneuvering reflected broader anxieties about governance, as the Regency Council, meant to balance power, succumbed to Seymour's ambition, echoing Henry's own ruthlessness. Henry's death marked a pivotal transition from autocratic tyranny to collaborative governance, laying the groundwork for England's constitutional evolution. His reign, defined by ambition, cruelty, and reform, left a complex legacy. The dissolution of monasteries, while enriching the crown, fueled inflation and public discontent, sowing seeds of unrest. His break with Rome created a national church but left a fractured religious landscape, with his wavering convictions complicating England's spiritual path. The physical space of his death, Whitehall's royal chambers, became a site of superstition, with courtiers reporting strange noises and chills, amplifying the mythos of a king whose presence lingered. Henry's final days, a morbid spectacle of decay, underscore a universal truth. Death equalizes all, stripping titles and power to reveal raw humanity. The man who executed queens and nobles faced eternity alone, his existential terror a poignant reminder of mortality's reach. His legacy, woven into England's fabric, shaped its future while reflecting its past, a testament to the resilience of human nature amid power and pain. If this story of ambition, betrayal, and redemption inspires you, like and share it with others, and subscribe to join us in exploring history's lessons, because by understanding the past, we empower ourselves to build a brighter, wiser future together.